Hey everybody, Economic Ninja here. I hope you're doing great. We're going to talk today about why Americans are not being paid enough. And when you start to realize by looking at the sheer numbers, the data, you start to really see why it is inevitable that the economy is going to collapse. And I say collapse in the term of actual collapse when I'm talking about a currency, the average currency, fiat currency, something that's backed by nothing, just hopes and dreams and pixie dust. And let's throw unicorn farts in there at the same time. It lasts about 35 years. And this version of the US dollar has lasted 50 years. And now we're coming at the breaking point. We're seeing agreements that were made for the dollar 50 years ago being broken. And we are seeing all kinds of chaos. And we are seeing inflation like something we have never seen before, quite frankly, in America. And even though the official numbers are saying that we're at 1981 inflation numbers. Trust me, we're still climbing back up that peak and we are going to exceed it. Why? It's very simple, because the Federal Reserve is not raising rates. They are not raising rates fast enough and high enough to get on top of real inflation, okay? Let alone CPI, which just came in at 9.1%. So until they do that, they're not going to be able to quell inflation. They can burst the housing bubble and other bubbles, but they're not going to be able to slow food inflation, fuel inflation without really getting those rates up higher. All right, so got my notes, and I got some really high-end graphics too. We're going to be showing you too. My editor wrote those for me. So here we go. In 2022. The average American wages were at $27.45 an hour. And actually, I'm going to be honest with you, I find that very hard to believe, because I know so many people, even here in California where the cost of living is outrageous and people are crazy, they're not making that much. But so it's found very, very hard to believe. But those are the official numbers, $27.45 an hour. Now in 1972, and I think 1972 is a very important year or era, let's say the early 70s, because in the early 70s, that was when we just walked away from the gold standard and we went really onto an oil-based standard, which wasn't really, it was just a military standard, right? The full faith and confidence in the U.S. government coming to kick your butt if you went against them and didn't use dollars to buy things. So the 72 was a really good year to start, because when we saw us disconnect fully from gold, then we started to see inflation, and it just started ripping towards the end of the year, right? Or the end of the decade. Well, in 1972, the same workers made $3.88 an hour. So a massive change from $3.88 to now $27.45. Well, here's the problem. When you adjust it for inflation, that's only an increase of 12 cents an hour. Now, can you imagine that? Think about that. Just taking into account the cost of inflation. Now, we all know the inflation metrics that the government give you are totally stupid. They're a lie. This 9.1%, which, by the way, was this complete surprise to Wall Street, but not a complete surprise to you guys at Ninja Nation. And we know it's going to get worse, right? Quite frankly, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw 10% this next month, but you never know, The producer price index is in double digits now, and so I wouldn't be surprised if we saw it. But an increase of 12 cents per hour is nothing in this day and age, right? Now, here's the thing. 2/3 of workers right now are saying that raises are not keeping up with inflation. Now, I want you to understand that number, that 2/3 number of workers that are being polled, is drastically up this year as opposed to a year ago or the year before, okay? The reason why is because inflation really started moving up, like at a fever pitch last September, okay? And then it really took effect in January. In September, we saw gasoline and food prices start to rise, but in January, the narrative changed, because that's when mortgage rates started to rise. And that's when you started to see more and more headlines coming out about inflation, because it was not only the food and gas, but it was also the cost of buying a home. And again, even though not everybody owns homes, right? You have to remember or realize that the vast majority of a country's wealth, any country on earth, is tied up in real estate, okay? So of course, when the cost of real estate starts getting expensive, whether it be the actual price of the home or the price of the payment, because you have to add the price of the home plus the cost of borrowing it, right? The mortgage interest. When you couple those together, that's what becomes the narrative, okay? So that's when it's just hit a fever pitch in January. Now, Politicians, you gotta love those morons. They all they do is promise to fix this. That's all they do. Hey, vote for me and I'm gonna fix it. And then they become the problem, right? Because they figure out that they can vote themselves prosperity. They can get all kinds of bonuses for whoever they're doing work for, these big conglomerates, these corporations, and they're completely useless, right? And that's the problem. They've been promising, and now what you have is career politicians like Nancy Pelosi. People like that sit there and now year after year like, okay, we did our work, but now we're going to do more, and it's going to be this. And really, what they're doing is they're sprinkling, salting little bits of money over the poorest population to keep them happy, not really realizing they do not really realize that they're in poverty, right? That they can never make it, that they're in this rat race, just running around in circles, never being able to get out. So between 1979 and 2020, wages grew 17.5%. But here's the problem. Productivity grew 61%. And what that means, productivity is the advance of technology. And so the problem is when we, from these years, 79 to 20, when productivity goes up, and we have new types of technology that enter the workforce, you actually need less work out of human beings. I'll give you an example. McDonald's is a perfect example of this. They've been around since definitely 1979, and they are all about automation, right? So every time they have a new machine that can automatically slice and dice the potatoes and put them in the fryer, you need one less person to actually transfer those buckets. Or, they have these robots that are coming out and stuff. So from 79 till, and the big thing was the cash wrap in McDonald's. They're advancing that to where, they get it so streamlined that one person could handle the work of two people because of the way the advancements they dealt with the cash register. Now they've got lines to where one line is just pickup because you have an online order. You have still someone there, but pretty soon that person's not even going to be there. So as productivity goes up, especially when American Online came on, the World Wide Web, and started working with the internet, employees were less needed, okay? Well, then this is what happens, and this is what's really scary, and this is that wealth gap that's happening right now, and I do not want that for you. If you're listening to this, you're new to this channel, stick around, because this collapse is gonna be massive, and I want you to take advantage of it and become wealthy, not sitting there and, being part of being a victim and being literally tossed out on the streets here pretty soon, okay? So the bottom 90% from that amount of time, from 1979 to 2020, annual wage earners on an annual basis, so annual wage earners, the bottom 90% of earners grew, sorry, I'm blanking out here, grew 28%. So the wages. So from 1979 to 2020, the bottom 90% of those wage earners, their wages grew 28%. So a lot of people would say, oh, that's not bad. It's 28%, right? Here's the problem though. So you're like, all right, the problem is my costs are going up. This is the stuff I was talking about. Problem is though, because costs are going up, even though I made more, 28% more over the last 3 decades or 4 decades, my costs based on CPI inflation numbers, they're pretty much staying stagnant. They're staying flat. So I told you there's technical stuff coming out. So they grew 28%. Now the top 1% of earners in the nation from 1979 to 2020, their salaries grew 179%. Think of these people as middle management or upper management. Upper management, let's go upper management. Middle management, upper management. These guys grew 179. Why? Well, because there was less of them because of automation, and there was they were able to control more automation, more people because of productivity, right? So their wages increased by 179%. Here's where it gets scary. The top 0.01%, their wages from 1979 to 2020, they grew 389%. Now think about that. It means that the wealth gap is getting bigger. The bottom wage earners, the people that need to supply this country with economic prosperity because they're getting paychecks and they're buying cars, they're going out to eat, they're going on vacations. That's the bulk of the people, all right? That's the bulk of the earners. They are getting left out as the top 1% and 0.01% are walking away. Well, the thing is, the top 1% and the 1%, they don't spend as much money on volume as the 90%. And that's what we need to wake up and figure out right now. So it is very important now more than ever that you have a side hustle, that you start looking into starting a business, figuring out a different way to make money, bring in a different, multiple streams of cash flow. Because first off, you're going to need the money to survive and thrive, right? When this crash happens, I want you to have money to go out and buy homes with and buy businesses with, that kind of stuff. The other thing is I want you to be able to push that money back into the economy, and then we have a healthy economy. All right, guys, I hope you got something out of this. I appreciate everything you do for me, everyone that's sharing these videos, hitting the thumbs up and commenting every day. I could not thank you enough. Ninja Nation is strong, and it is going to absolutely crush it. We're going to be an army of people that are prepared and not scared. All right, guys, that being said, the Economic Ninja is out.